The game last night, it was back and forth, a tale of two halves, and then certainly at halftime with Gary Kubiak lying on the ground. And as I've mentioned before, what the process was at NBC is we're trying to figure this out live as Bob Costas says, get a camera on the field, and then we realized what had happened. And then we can see the in-house camera, and I can see Michele Tafoya scrambling around Gary Kubiak, just trying to get as close as possible to get some kind of update. And, it's live. So you're not sure what you can show, how long you're going to stay on it before you can allow Michele to get some information. And Michele, kind enough to join us now. When did you know something was wrong, Michele?
It was interesting. My usual routine at halftime is I go up, walk off the field with the visiting coach. So I was walking up with Chuck Pagano, and I'm in the tunnel, and I hear in my IFB, the little thing we wear in our ear to communicate with the truck, hey, Michele, where are you? Where are you? And I'm thinking, I'm talking to Pagano. What are they yelling at me for? So I start walking out of the tunnel. I said, what is it? And they said, we think Gary Kubiak is down on the field. So I just start sprinting, and I get out of the tunnel, and I see that Kubiak is down, and there's just a mass of medical personnel and security and all kinds of people around him. And as you said, I just tried to get as close as I could.
But what goes in your mind of what can you gather there to actually give a report when Bob Costas goes to you?
I'm looking at Kubiak, and I'm trying to see what he's doing. Are his eyes open? Is he talking? Is he moving? What are they doing to treat him? Who's around him? And at that point, we had absolutely nothing official. So all I could do was describe what I was seeing. And I got to tell you, it was, we had just spent a couple days earlier a lot of time with Gary and in a meeting at practice, and just seeing this guy as healthy and happy and invigorated as a coach can be. And then to see him suddenly like this on the ground. And one of the things that I just kept jumping out at me was seeing that he couldn't open his eyes or wouldn't open his eyes. He was rubbing his eyes. His eyes were squeezed tight as though he was in some kind of discomfort, and clearly he was. And when he tried to sit up even, couldn't open his eyes or wouldn't open his eyes. And that jumped out at me as just being something off. And again, trying to talk, we were just trying to make sure, is he moving? Is he speaking? Is he alert? What's going on? And there was very little we could gather, but we wanted to paint the picture as best we could.
And you can't speculate, certainly in a situation like that. You got to fight the urge to speculate what you think. You can only describe what you're seeing. But what prepares you for that moment?
I don't know. I think your instincts. When you're in this business, it's live reporting and covering something breaking like that. It's just an instinct. I don't know. I just have this gut feeling of getting information, observing every possible thing that I can, and kind of pushing my way through, because there was a lot of security around, and it was such a mass confusion down there. I don't think even the security knew, well, should we let this guy in? Should we let a photographer closer? Should we let her? And they were all so stunned by it and concerned about Kubiak that there was kind of this weird balance going on between trying to keep people away, but everyone curious to know what's going on. So I'm just kind of like busting my way and bullying my way around these people. I don't think I was rude, but I wanted to get in there. I want to get as close as I can, and I want to get as much detail as I can.
Yeah, and you're trying to be respectful, but then you're also trying to do your job. And it's live. That's what I keep telling people. That people said, well, we should have stayed on the field. We could have kept the camera on Gary while he's down and had Bob and you do it. And I said, no, that's not fair to Gary, first of all, and you trying to get information. And I didn't want people speculating, and I didn't know how serious it was. So I was erring on the side of caution to say, come back to us, let us do the halftime highlights, and then I don't know if Gary's dying. I really didn't. And you probably didn't know either.
I didn't, and I think you're right about that. You're walking a very fine line in an instance like this, and I literally was thinking, is this life-threatening? Has he had a heart attack? Has he had a stroke? All these questions are going through my mind, and that's what made it so scary, just seeing his his face. And when he tried to sit up and just couldn't open his eyes or wouldn't, and then laid back down again, and immediately they went to get him on the gurney, I thought, wow, what is happening here? And so, yeah, you have to be careful. You know, you can't show. It's such a fine line, as you said. So it was a really odd and frightening experience.
Talking to Michele Tafoya from Sunday Night Football, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. The sideline for the Texans in the second half. Did you notice something that was, the air let out of them, something different?
It wasn't immediate. I mean, I was up in the tunnel watching all the players come out of the locker room, and presumably they had been told, you're not going to have Kubiak out there with you on the sideline, and presumably they had been told, but we didn't know what they had been told. I talked to Wade Phillips when he came out, and he said, Gary got taken into the hospital for precautionary reasons, and coaches, we don't sleep much, and he might just be exhausted, and he was really trying to downplay it. But then it had been such a fiery first half, Dan, because this Case Keenum kid had just lit things up, and every single player on that Houston bench was ecstatic and excited and jumping around in a way that you don't normally see on an NFL sideline in the first half. That was certainly gone. The play calling, as Tony Dungy pointed out last night, and I think correctly, lost its rhythm. And it just seemed to snowball after that. So then the crowd was certainly different. They didn't know what the heck was going on either.
Well, great job last night in the moment. But, I guess there's nothing that prepares you for it. But your instinct certainly. We had the overhead camera. So I'm watching you trying to penetrate this circle of security. And I can see you just saying, I'm trying to get an opening here, looking for something.
And at the same time, Dan, they didn't want me in the shot, so they're going, get out of the shot. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to work, and you want me out of the shot. What do I do here? But so hopefully I didn't spoil your beautiful shot.
Well, safe travels, and thanks for joining us.
You got it, Dan. Take care.
That's Michele Tafoya.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.